24, Lower Frederick Board of Supervisors General Meeting Agenda. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcements. Township meetings are recorded for the purpose of preparing the minutes, and the recording is destroyed after the minutes are approved. The meeting will be posted online on the Township YouTube channel. The link can be found on the Board of Supervisors page on the Township website. It is requested that all persons wishing to speak before the board shall state their name, address, and the subject matter upon which they wish to speak for the record. In the interest of facilitating the business of the board, all persons addressing the board shall be limited to 3 minutes, unless such time is extended by the chair for good cause. Individuals are requested to remain in their seats and to respect when other persons are speaking. The Board of Supervisors will provide a reasonable opportunity for citizens to comment on any non-agenda items after all agenda items have been addressed, but prior to the adjournment of the public meeting. And we had an executive session immediately prior to this meeting about, Colby?
It was for real estate purposes and litigation.
Thank you. Real estate purposes and litigation. All right.
And we also had the information gathering to discuss, or for the budget presentation by the manager to the board on Thursday, October 31st.
But that was not an executive session.
It wasn't, but it's, you
Yes.
should note it.
So we gathered to receive information and further details about the budget. And for our record keeper, it was not an executive session, but we were all together in the room. Thank you. All right, first item is administrative actions. We have 4 minutes to approve, August 6 and 27, and September 3rd and September 24th. Is it acceptable to approve these in one set?
Please.
Does anyone have any additional changes that they have not already sent forward? Would someone like to make a motion to approve these 4 sets of minutes?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Chuck Geiser will second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, next item is treasurer's report.
Okay, so this is the general fund budget performance through October 31st. Total revenue, $2.173 million, which has us $41,365 over budget. We're up 4.2% from last year. Total expenses, $2.144 million, $233,926 under budget, and that is up 8% from 2023. The net income as of October 31st for the general fund is $28,829. The township's budgeted net income is negative $446,462. The net income performance is $217,633 over budget. Revenue is over budget by 1.9%, or $41,365. The township is running on or above budget for most line items. No exceptions are interest and EIT surpassing budget by a total 10.9%, or $92,249. While building permits, real estate, fire hydrant assessment are below budget by 7%, or $62,635. We've received 90.1% of our 2024 budgeted revenue. Township expenses are on or close to most budget line items. Expenses are under budget by 9.8%, or $233,926. Expenses are under primarily for police and public work wages, health insurance, legal and engineering, road repair and fuel. Expenses are over for admin, office technology, building repair and utilities, PD communications, public works, vehicle repair, and planning, zoning, other service charges. We have spent 75.5% of our 2024 budget expense. The general capital fund has a net income of $46,473, with expenses totaling $219,000 so far in 2024. Sewer fund overall revenue is surpassing budget by 33.2%, or $383,000. As reported in July, we received the sewer connection tap-in fee contribution from Farview Estate Prestige Development. totaling $311,020 for 42 connections. We've received 39 sewer connection tap-in fees so far in 2024 as part of the Fulmer Road Riverside Avenue sewer extension connection. We have one property with 4 ADUs who is utilizing the payment plan. Expenses are on or close to budget for most line items. Repair and maintenance and the I&I sewer line clean repair are under so far this year, while sludge hauling, information technology, supplies, chemicals, sewer line extension, and insurance bonding are over budget. The refunds of prior year revenues is for the refunds for the dormant EDUs returned this year. Sewer expenses are over budget by 6% or $70,727. The net income is $287,170, which is $312,313 over budget. The fund has earned 125.8% of its revenue budget and spent 94.5% of its expense budget. The final sewer loan payment for 2024 was paid in October. Sewer capital fund, the net income is $16,814 with expenses totaling $226,484 so far in 2024. Liquid fuels, the fund has earned 113.7% of its revenue budget and spent 61.7% of its expense budget. We're basically making interest throughout the year. The actual net income is negative $50,900, which is $173,000 under budget. The 2024 oil and chip project was completed in June, and the paving project budget for this year was not approved, putting the fund under budget by such a large amount. Open space fund, the net income is $88,372. Total available dollars with current allocation for property conservation easement grant and county agricultural preservation is $250,378. Expenses so far have been for the EIT commission appraisals, and the ARPA COVID relief fund. So far in 2024, $147,896 has been spent, with $14,943 in interest earned. The total available dollars with current allocation for the Monco 2040 grant, Coble Park Phase 1, PD remodeling Phase 1, Township building front door replacement, Township building generator upgrade, Main Street and Spring Mount Road base repair, and stormwater culvert projects $53,894 available for other projects / purchasing. Are there any questions?
I do, but I want to make sure I'm not going to blow everyone's ears up. So for the ARPA COVID, after everything that's earmarked, it remains 53,000?
Yes.
And that's going to something?
It can, if we don't find a project or way to spend it, that would be something additional, like as far as
Okay. Are we going to lose that money?
no,
Okay. We are going to spend that money.
in one way or another, yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Eileen, can we get the library higher up on the agenda?
Oh, geez. Okay.
But we were happy to put you on the agenda. Just let us know, like Friday before you want to come in, we'll get you.
She did. I missed it.
Oh, that's all right. Can we put her a little higher up so she doesn't have to sit through the meeting? Where do you want, maybe?
She's not on here. I mean, she's giving information. She's not, you guys aren't making any.
Do we put her?
How about now?
Yeah.
Well, let's take care of the bills first, and then, is that okay with the board? Okay, great. All right, so we have bills. Are there any items in here we need to take out and vote on separately?
No.
Okay, so we have bills to pay in the general fund of $136,085.15, in the sewer fund of $317,106.80, and ARPA COVID relief of $13,720.27. Someone like to make a motion to approve and pay those bills?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So we had Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. All right, you're up. And just make sure there may be a red light. If you push the button, it should go green.
Now green. Hey,
Great.
okay. Hi, Eileen Johnson, branch manager of the Perkins Valley Library, the library that you guys support. Thank you very much. We've had a very busy year trying to get a lot of things accomplished. We were at the parks twice this year. We were asked to come back, so it was great. We did the stories in the parks. Parents love coming to the stories and enjoying the parks. It's always really nice. The library had a busy summer. We had just under 200 kids reading over 5,500 hours, which is really cool. We had 197 book reviews returned in by the adults, which is also great that they're participating in reading throughout the summer. We have a lot of things we've been doing through the fall. Unfortunately, my list is towards the end because it's November. But in November, we had started in September monthly a guided painting program. You can come watch a video. It's kind of like Bob Ross, but it's not Bob Ross, and create a little painting. It's usually gift-worthy quality if you want to make something to give away or put in your own house. It's a lot of fun. We've got a video discussion coming up, which we will screen the movie at the library, or you can watch it at home, and then 2 days later, go to a Zoom call and discuss the film. This month, we're doing the movie Alien. I will not be watching. I'm a chicken. I won't watch it. But my assistant will be doing the viewings and the discussions, and it's going to be an interesting idea to do it. We've got a puppet show coming up for kids. We've got coding for kids coming up. We've got family fun nights, which include a trivia night. We've got coming up a puzzle competition. You come as a group and put puzzles together. And trying to keep everybody busy and lots of things happening. Like I said, I'm at the end of my list for this quarter. So when I get the new one in a couple weeks, I'll definitely bring copies over. Our big news is we have started our annual appeal, which we do in the fall, and it's doing pretty well. As you know, the annual appeal we put out because we do need money to help keep our building running. It's the money that actually keeps our lights running and the heat and all kind of basic stuff keeping our building running. We also have been granted an LSA grant. And if you haven't seen the news, I'm going to say it wrong, $999,759, I think it is, slightly under $1 million. This we cannot use for any pretty things in the library. It is not to be used on anything for keeping our lights on or things like that, but it'll be all construction. We intend to change things like the doorways coming into the library will be now ADA power doors. So those nice heavy doors will open for you. They have all kinds of ideas. The kitchen that we have in the basement, once upon a time was a professional kitchen. It has not been professional for a very long time. So it's going to be renovated, and part of that space will become some kind of storage and or a conference room, which will be a nice small space that we can have downstairs. They have a lot of ideas, and since they just got the grant approval, it's one of those, what did we ask for? What do we need? How do we put it together? What's our priority? When do we need an engineer? When do we need an architect? Because we're all learning everything. But there are a lot of changes to come, probably in the next 1.5 years, 2 years, to get all this taken care of. Any questions from the board?
No, sounds great, thank you, and congratulations on the grant.
Thank you. Leave this on?
And you are welcome to stay, but you are not required to stay if you have other things to do. Okay, next, professional staff reports. Engineer?
Thank you. So the first couple things are on the agenda tonight, so I'll jump over them. I will mention on Melbourne Hill, construction of sediment basins 1B and 2 is underway. Storm sewer installation connecting to Gravel Pike is planned this week, which requires limited daytime lane restrictions on Gravel Pike. The applicant is working to address minor drafting corrections to finalize the plans for signature and recording, and that will be discussed later in the agenda. At the Prestige Builders or Farmview Estates project, work is underway. This is a 42-home development on Little Road. Grading permits have been approved for 7 home lots and also a temporary sales trailer that's going on Lot 1. Curbing has been installed for a portion of the new road, and base course of pavement is likely to be placed this week on this portion of the road. Installation of sewer pipe in Little Road continues and is proceeding slowly due to the rock that's been encountered. As to Arcadia Station, the 2 donated trees at Cuddy Park were replaced this past month by the developer's landscaper, and the Public Works Department is working hard to water those trees in this drought so they have the best opportunity to thrive. The developer still needs to replace trees and bushes that did not survive within the development. All other punch list items have been resolved. Once this work is complete, we anticipate the developer will request closeout and dedication, at which time the 18-month project maintenance period would begin. The Artisan Land Development is a plan for a housing development that's right at the boundary of Lower Frederick Township with Schwenksville Borough and Perkiomen Township. Those plans have been submitted and are currently under review, and that project will likely be on the agenda for the next Planning Commission meeting. Also received were plans for what's called the Yerger Road Minor Subdivision. It's just a lot line change that's been submitted. That is also under review and is likely to be on the agenda at the next Planning Commission meeting. The Springmount Road Sidewalk Project, a utility coordination meeting was held with PECO and Verizon, and a pre-construction meeting held with the contractor. Tree removals are expected to begin before the end of the year to support utility relocations, but the bulk of project work is likely to be undertaken in March and April of 2025. On Springmount Road, Saks & Sons performed limited pavement base repairs on both Springmount Road and Main Street. That was done in early October. The Zieglerville Road Drainage Project concluded restoration of a mulch garden bed and replacement of an evergreen tree that had not survived. Were completed in October, so that concludes the project. And on the Delphi Junction sidewalk, as requested by the board, we did evaluate the unit price of an asphalt walkway rather than a concrete walkway along the gravel pike frontage of the subject property. And that unit cost would be about $12 per square foot for asphalt, roughly half the cost of the concrete walkway. I'm not aware if this option has been discussed further with the property owner or with the county. The other items on my report either haven't changed since the last report or just individual grading permits. So if it pleases the board, I'll end my report there.
I know you didn't mention this, Carol, but for the Ming Road special study for the 537 plan, is the cost for that in this year's budget or next year's budget? The cost for that preparation?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to have to look to the manager.
Jason, because I remember we tried to get grant money for that and we were unsuccessful. So have we maybe split that between 2 years? Because I remember it was not cheap. Because it's not in our 2025 budget, we probably ought to add it in. Now, would that go in the sewer budget, or would that go in the general fund budget? Sewer budget, okay. Yeah,
Where are
sorry.
we with that study, as a matter of fact?
So we have completed the field surveys, and it's frankly in the queue, but not real high in the queue, but it's in the queue for continuing forward with the actual study. But the field work has been completed.
With the DEP? Or you need to complete that?
We need to complete that.
Okay. Is that going to cost more money?
So yes, that's going to be engineering costs. It'll involve value engineering and hydroterra.
So has any money been paid for that study yet in
Yes.
this year? Okay, so whatever the balance is should go into the 2025 budget. Maybe half of it, or
I can review that with Jason after the meeting.
How much was the cost?
$75,000. Yeah. It's budget season, we need to. I mean, maybe just put something in notionally, like half of it or 2/3 of it, or if you can come up with something that makes sense. Okay, I don't have any other questions. Any questions on Carol's report? Go ahead.
Diane Jurin, 9 Siglerville Road. This is actually for another resident, maybe for everybody that lives on Little Road. There was a question if either one of the developments, if there was some kind of allowance for people that currently live on Little Road, if they could hook up to the sewer in some way, whether it was through the gravity feed or a low-pressure system. Does anybody remember if there was a qualifier for that, that people on Little Road? Pardon?
They are putting in stubs for all of the residents.
Okay, the resident on Little Road did not know that.
Okay, well, we've discussed that several times, but I'm sorry they didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the inspector and the director of public works actually went door to door talking to residents. So if there's somebody that we need to reach out to, maybe after the meeting, you can let me know who that is.
Okay, all right, will do. All right, thank you for answering that. And now it's on the record again.
Okay, solicitor report.
I don't have anything to report this evening. I probably will speak on certain things that are in the business section.
That's great, thank you. All right, township staff reports, police.
Thank you. For the month of October, the police department had 371 calls for service. We also conducted 34 traffic stops, 18 of which citations were issued. We continue to always receive traffic speeding complaints. The police department in response conducted 42 separate enforcement details throughout areas of the township. Some training that the police department attended this month was the Emergency to Disaster Incident Training Symposium, FBI Executive Leadership Institute, Interview, Interrogation, Search and Seizure, Officer Resiliency, and the Community Anti-Threats Officer Program. We've been receiving multiple reports throughout the township for vehicle break-ins, vandalism, suspicious activity. So I worked with the manager, just put a community notice out on the Facebook page. We'd like to remind all the residents to leave a light on, lock their cars, remove their valuables, out of sight, out of mind. A lot of people don't believe in leaving lights on, but a light is a deterrent. We're back to having several open investigations that I'm not able to discuss right now. As these are resolved, make the board aware of what we're doing and with the arrests. We had one with the vehicle theft from Saxon Sons, and the news release is included in the packet that was provided. And I'd just like to acknowledge Officer Lauer, Detective Milligan, with the hard work they did to solve it, get the guy in custody. And as last I know, he is still in Montgomery County Prison. That's all I have. I'll take any questions from the board or the public.
I don't have a question, but I was out walking on my street on Halloween, and I saw a police car coming down the road with the lights on, and I got caught up and wondered what it was about. And one of your officers was handing out candy and reflective bracelets to trick-or-treaters, and they were very happy and very complimentary of the police officer. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Yeah, thank you. And we made it a point to try to be out, be seen. Reference to the bags, multiple little kids that we were handing them out to. They're handing off what mom and dad gave them, and they thought it was the coolest thing carrying the bag. So had some candy, some activity books, the glow-in-the-dark bracelets. So, we try to be out, be social, be public, be approachable. So we're trying to change that culture. So glad to hear that. You're not the only one that's made a lot of reference to that.
Yeah, well, good work.
Thank you. All right, well,
One question or thing to mention to the chief. I was looking at Friends of Lower Frederick Facebook page, and they did have a thing there where maybe there was a person of interest. And the page is telling people that if you see this person of interest, send me a private message, which I think is the absolute wrong thing if somebody's trying to, wannabe cop here. They should be calling you. Right?
absolutely.
So, I really discourage that. I think it's irresponsible. They're not law enforcement officers. People should be contacting the police if they see this person of interest, not private messaging somebody on a Facebook page.
I will, just to add to what you said, Supervisor Iser, reaching out to somebody that is not law enforcement has the potential to jeopardize our investigation. I'm aware of it. A lot of people had reached out to us about it. Anything, and I'll just, as just a broad statement, if you have information, reach out to us first. Please do not post it on social media. That social media is very prevalent. Somebody that knows that has committed a crime is going to start checking the social media stuff. If they know that they're being looked at or wanted, it makes our job harder to get a prosecution and or closure for somebody that's a victim.
Thank you. Fire company?
So they're having a meeting tonight. So I can just say they had 29 calls for the month of October. I don't have any of the nailed as far as the other information they normally provide, but
We can catch up next month. All right. We have an ambulance report?
okay, so I have September and October. So in the month of September, they had 21 calls in Lower Frederick and 79 in their primary cover area and 41 calls in September for mutual aid. In the month of October, they had 20 calls in Lower Frederick for a year-to-date total of 192. In their primary coverage area, they had 75 for a year-to-date total of 648 calls. This is Limerick, Perkium, and Schwenksville, Upper Frederick, and Upper Salford. And as far as mutual aid, it's outside their primary coverage area. They had 37, and they've had 489 year-to-date. They did attach a flyer, which for the PCAA's 15th annual Operation Christmas Kids Toy Run. If any local business would like to be a drop-off location or donate, please contact toyrun24@medic308.org.
Great, thank you. Public Works?
Okay, for the month of October, this is the Public Works performed the following work in addition to their routine operations. They had 5 sump pump sewer inspections for UNOs, hot patch paved Zieglerville Road. They set up for Fall Fest and the Trunk or Treat events, installed the landing water conservation sign at Coble Park, continued work in the police department as part of the police department upgrade, mulched the flower beds at the township building. RJ and Tom attended low volume dirt and gravel road training. They took an LTAP stop sign course virtually, cleaned up down streets at the sewer plant, and they started their fall road mowing.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Township Board and Commission reports. EAC?
The EAC met on October 14th. We did not get our agenda submitted on time and therefore just conducted an informational meeting. We reviewed property maintenance codes from nearby municipalities, looking for how they handled the weed portion of their codes that we've been discussing in our meetings recently. The Green Energy Committee is looking into how newer energy conservation codes are applied into current building codes. The Stormwater Committee is continuing to look into recommended water testing for residential wells. They reported on some water treatment companies that offer free testing. And again, we're hoping to do some outreach on that at a future time. The Birdtown Committee reported on a bird banding event that was held at Rushton Woods Preserve in Newtown Square. The Single-Use Plastic Bag Committee has recognized many people have acquired reusable bags, but
frequently forget to bring them into the store with them. They have drafted a letter with hopes to send it to CVS and Wawa offering don't forget your reusable bag signs that they could post at their stores. And we would like to get an okay from the board to send out such a letter.
I guess my question is for the solicitor, since it wasn't a actual public meeting, do we need to have the board vote on bringing that to the board, or do we not?
I mean, typically they would, yes, but we also, did we have that in a report? I don't have that report sitting in front of me, so I don't. The board has the letter? They did not make a motion, so I would hope that they would have made a motion. So I would say no, not at this time, but at the next meeting of the work session, you could.
Sorry about that, but the lawyer has spoken.
Okay, we will discuss it. We will take it up at our meeting on Monday.
Great.
For this month's Did You Know, it will be soon time to discard pumpkins purchased for jack-o'-lanterns and decorations. Rather than to discard them in the trash, we are offering a link to a simple method to compost your pumpkins and return their nutrients to the soil. And that's all we have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I think it was a very good letter, by the way. I fully support it. Thanks. Diane? Thank you, Diane.
All right, Open Space Committee?
I don't see Andrew on there. He's our recording secretary, so I'll just give you a basic summary of what took place. The October meeting of the Open Space Committee was mostly an executive session meeting, but we did have some clerical activities, and including a review of our outreach letter to the public. At this point in time, the committee has put all its foundation into place for the most part. So henceforth, we are looking at the possibility of, doing meetings perhaps on a bi-monthly basis or even on an as-needed basis, because at this point, we really are entertaining the possibility of preservation of individual properties or clustered properties, if the case might be. So to meet regularly with, no other agenda necessity other than that, we felt that there's a possibility that we would look to that in the coming year. So that was it. We had an executive session at the end of that, and that was the extent of the meeting.
Yeah, just Phil, just like all the other committees, I think the recommendation would be advertise 12 meetings a year, and if you don't need to hold one, just cancel it. Great, thank you. Park and Recreation?
We had our park board meeting this Monday, November 4th. It was our great pleasure to support the police department for Trunk or Treat this year again. It was well attended, a fun finale to our 2024 event schedule, and we appreciate the support always of Public Works and our site prep in helping make those events a success. We are well into our confirming dates and contracting with suppliers and bands and speakers for our 2025 schedule. We're seeing a lot of competition locally for vendors, especially for fall events, so we need to get those in now. Our final activity for this year is with the Perky Pacers Walk group. Becky has made arrangements for us for a Pennypacker Mills holiday tour as a group. It's reserved slot for us on Sunday, December 8th from 1:30 to 2:30. We'll meet in the parking lot behind the mansion and go in as a group. There's no registration necessary. It is free, but they do ask for a donation of $2 per person. So that is Sunday, December 8th at 1:30. We're waiting to learn about the award of the DCED Greenways grant for the Coble Park renovation project. Last touching base with DCED. They do expect to award that this November, this month sometime, so we wait expectantly. That is for Phase 1 of the Coble Park renovation project, the start of the excavation for the stormwater management on that. And also the Coble Park Playground questionnaire is pending posting up on SurveyMonkey. We were provided with costing information for decision-making on alternatives for the Foy Park Playground, which we discussed. And the majority of the park board voted to retain the playground and being mindful of the budget limitations. We voted for our primary recommendation, ideally, would be to replace the components with new components that have the warranty and also would be upgraded for the ADA and safety requirements, assuming that pending that the township would pay for that with ARPA funds or something else. I know, Jason, you had mentioned possible ARPA funds for that, but mindful of the budgeting to not have an impact on the township. Otherwise, the fallback would be to use the replacement parts using existing hardware. And our feeling with that was it's not ideal because the hardware is also aging, and building on aging equipment like that could cause premature failure and greater likelihood of future increased maintenance on the playground. So that was what we had decided to do on that. We also voted as a group. We had Becky had selected some new plant tree markers for us. We have been using aluminum signs at our donation trees, mostly in Village Center Park right now. They haven't held up well against weed whackers and lawnmowers. And they did the search, and we voted last night looking at it, choosing a engraved rock stones, which are very nice. Engraved rock, nice solid rock. It's okay, I bench 115, I'm good for it. And we would have one of these for each of the trees. And I know that Public Works is working on a way to mount these nicely. I understand you've got an idea for that, Tommy. So these are about $120 a piece. They actually ship for free from Canada somehow. I don't know how. Slow freight, maybe Camel, I don't know. So we voted for these. There's no charge, and our original payment for donation of the tree covers in the event that the tree would have to be replaced, full recovery cost, replacement cost, and also this kind of thing in ongoing maintenance of the trees. So it's free to everybody. So we will just have these made for everyone that has thus far donated a tree. So we're really happy with those. And that's, we have, the only other thing is we have 2 membership slots open on the park board. So if you're interested in planning and pulling off some really fun community events and planning projects, we've got 2 openings for. So thank you very much. Any questions, I'll answer.
No, thank you, Pam.
I just have a follow-up for Jason. So Pam had mentioned that the park board voted on Foy Park in terms of the equipment there. And there appears to be adequate money in our ARPA funds to pay for the option that they put forward.
Yes.
And so what if the board should move forward with that, what would be the procedure and what would be the timing?
So my plan for that was for this to be on your November work session.
Okay.
Based on the criteria for the ARPA funds, as long as the board has approved the project, we have a quote and we have pricing that locks that money in. If we wouldn't get it done this year, we'd still be okay to carry it over into next year.
All right. Thank you.
Planning Commission.
Bill Smith, Part 2. The Planning Commission met on October the 17th. There were 2 agenda items worth mentioning to the board. The first of which was we undertook a review of the artisan land development sewage component 4A. And that is a requirement of a development plan that the planning agency of that township or municipality be able to comment and review the planning for the sewering of that project. So we undertook that based on a drafted letter that Value Engineering provided us with. I think it was dated October the 11th. We went through and concurred with all their comments and their recommendations and voted to, certify and approve that component 4A proposal. We also undertook, we'll call it an introductory conversation and discussion as a second agenda item for the, we'll call it the improvement and planning for the Zieglerville Village. That, of course, is a VMU district in our township, and it has a lot of possibilities. It's a growing area of our township, and an exciting one at that. So I think that, this is a timely thing for the Planning Commission to sort of readdress what our goals are and what we would like to see happen there. We felt that some additional mapping and some aerial views would be necessary, so our community planner from the Montgomery County Planning Commission is going to bring back that information to our next meeting. And we'll begin to get into more of our specific, goals set for that project area and recommendations we would like to make. And we would encourage the public, if you have any good ideas for how you'd like to see Zieglerville head into the future, we'd certainly love to hear them. And you're welcome to attend our meetings and also provide some input and, participate in discussions as well. So that is our current goal, to try to facilitate, how we would like to see the eventual village develop and plan itself out. So that was our other agenda item, and I'd be willing to entertain any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Sure.
All right, that brings us to the business portion of our meeting. First item is a request for the Sandbrook subdivision maintenance period final escrow release.
Okay, as you may recall, at the October 1st BO Board of Supervisors General Meeting, Bruce Amrick asked the board to consider waiving the maintenance period for the subdivision since it's been roughly 3 years since the properties were completed. He offered to take out the pipe installation, do retainage for that since it was recently installed. Peter stated that as it wasn't on the agenda, the board could not take action. He also told Mr. Samrick he put his request in writing, which he's done via email. I have discussed this with both Peter and Carol, and they have no issue recommending waiving the maintenance period and returning the current escrow minus any of the outstanding invoices.
So is the amount that we're looking at $7,406.90?
Yes, that would have been the maintenance amount that would have been held if the board did not waive or chooses not to waive the maintenance period.
Any discussion from the board?
So the escrow retainage of 7,400, and then there's an outstanding balance, I assume that's money owed to the township of 5,400, so we're looking at the difference between those two numbers?
That was a misstep on mine. That's being addressed with a previous release, escrow release. That shouldn't have been on there.
I see. Which one?
The 5435.
Okay. So what amount would we be releasing then, the 740690?
Yes.
I'm perfectly fine with it if the engineers looked at it and,
Yes.
and all the finances are in order. It's fine.
No, I agree.
All right, well then would someone like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. So the motion is to waive the requirement for the maintenance escrow of $7,406.90 to be retained during the 18-month as the project is deemed complete, and further refund the remaining balance as the final escrow release. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have Supervisor Sachs made the motion, Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All set. Okay. Next item is appointment of a code enforcement zoning officer, building code floodplain administrator firm. As the board, I know we just got some more information about this today. Does the board want to discuss this or push this back?
I'm okay pushing it back until we can review everything we've received.
Okay, anyone else?
I agree.
Same, yep.
You okay with that, Terry? I agree. All right, so we are going to table this item for our next meeting, as we just received some new information that would go into our decision today. All right, that brings us to Melbourne Hill agreement approvals. Colby.
Okay, so Peter has had much back and forth with Melbourne's council. Toll Brothers will be taking over this project. He did ask to put this on the agenda for approval, which is what is before the board today. It is his standard development agreements.
So the agreement is with Toll Brothers, but also lists the two Heckler Brothers as the owners, right? Each are 50% owners,
Yes.
right? Something I wanted to find here. So just as a reminder for the public, the developer is going to pay $6,000 per single-family home for fee in lieu of payment of $258,000. 50% of that fee in lieu shall be paid at the time of the submission of the first building permit application, and the remaining 50% of this fee in lieu shall be paid in $3,000 increments in conjunction with the filing of the building permit application for each single-family home being built as part of the project. Just people ask when we're getting the money. That's the way it's working with this one. And that doesn't include tapping fee. That's a separate thing that they'll be paying.
Any other discussion from the board?
Other than to say it addresses lessons learned over at Arcadia Station with tree protection and drip edge and things like that, as well as, dictating working hours, not leaving debris on roads, all those good things are in the agreement. I'm fine with it. Do you want a motion?
Go ahead.
I move to accept the development agreement memorandum of development agreement and stormwater operation and maintenance agreement with Toll Brothers Mid-Atlantic LP Company for the Melbourne Hill subdivision, and further authorize the Board of Supervisor Chair to sign on behalf of the township.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Supervisor Yiser made the motion, Supervisor Sachs made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Next item is the Open Space Committee request for Open Space Committee property number 60.
This is a request for this property number for the Open Space Board to meet with or attend the county open space board meeting to discuss a possible partnership for property number 60, OSC property number 60. And I have a motion in there, but I believe a consensus would probably be fine on this, as opposed to a motion.
Any discussion from the board? Well, I guess it's my turn. I'll go ahead and make the motion. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't need the motion.
No, consensus is fine.
Terry and Terry, you both okay with this? Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yep, I'm fine.
Okay, so they have consensus.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right. Next item is escrow release number 6 for Loctite Land Development. Is that you, Carol, or is that Jason?
I can take this one if you'd like. Work is substantially complete at the Loctite Storage Land Development, and we received a request for further reduction of financial security. We reviewed the request, and we adjusted it to reflect the required 15% retainage that's in the development agreement. So we are recommending a reduction in the amount of $150,356.90. Once that reduction is made, that would leave an account balance of $177,034.20. That would be 15% of the original construction escrow.
Any discussion from the board?
No. I'll make a motion if you want.
Go ahead.
I move to authorize the release of escrow number 6 in the amount of $150,356.90, verified by value engineer memo dated October 29th, 2024.
Thank you. And I'll make the second. So Supervisor Yiser made the motion, Supervisor Hexter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, next is an estimate to approve sewer plant repair.
Okay, so this was presented to me from Tommy, our sewer operator and Public Works Director. This is the whole sewer system's emergency backup pump, and it's mobile, it's on a trailer. During the preventive maintenance this past year, it was determined the pump is not functioning properly, and it's unable to pump to its capacity. The service tech has stated it might pump up to half of its capacity. This pump would be needed if there's a pump failure to either the pump's lift stations or the sewer plant. And the quote that you're looking at, they've done work for us in the past, and they are a CoStarz dealer. Tommy is in the audience if you have further questions.
Is this the only pump, emergency pump we have? And so this is the one that's got a lot of hours on it when we had to have it running on 29 for a long period of time. Yep. So this is the one that kind of got us out of trouble right after the last hurricane came and took out the pump station on 29, just so people know what's going on. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I am too. We need this to function.
And what you're looking at is the quote for the repair of the pump and then also a rental of a pump while they're working on it.
It's like a 1-week rental, it looked like.
It's either like a week, they gave us like a 1 or 2 week and then up to like a month rate.
Right.
Yes. But that's why that's the 2 separate quotes. I just combined them for the motion if the board chooses to move forward.
Any discussion from the board?
I'll make that motion.
Go for it.
I move to authorize repair of the emergency backup pump for the sewer system in the amount of $24,594.04, and further authorize the township manager to sign any paperwork necessary to complete the repair.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Supervisor Halter made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is appointment to the Open Space Committee.
Okay, so we received this volunteer application on September 16th, 2024, and I was asked at a previous meeting to add this to the general meeting agenda to appoint Daniel Orff to the Open Space Committee for a term ending 12/31/2025.
This is their only vacancy?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? Want to make the motion?
Well, other than Dan's been on the list for a while, so.
Yeah.
yeah. Noel, you want to do it? Or I'll do it. Okay. I move to appoint Daniel Orff to the Open Space Committee for a term ending 12/31/2025.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Supervisor Yizer made the motion. Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So just to update everyone, so we have 2 vacancies on the Park Board. We have no vacancies on Planning or Open Space. And how many vacancies are on EAC? Just 1. That's great. Okay. Looking good. All right. The next item is the grinder pump O&M agreement for 245 Fulmer Road.
So this is one of the standard agreements prepared by Peter. It's necessary for the applicant to cover the stormwater management facilities associated with the project proposed on this property. The agreement has been signed by the applicant.
Any discussion from the board? No? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make that motion. I move to approve the grinder pump O&M agreement for 245 Fulmer Road and further authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Supervisor Hexter made the motion. Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. That brings us to our 2025 discussion and hopefully, which will lead to authorizing advertising.
Yeah. Which was reading view? Okay. So hopefully this will help when I share. Okay. All right. Okay. I guess, can people see this online? I guess maybe. Okay. All right. This is the 2025 fiscal year budget. Draft number 4, actually. Oh, thanks. I didn't. Thank you. Okay, so this is the fiscal year budget timeline so far. As you can see, we're at November 6th, assuming, or I shouldn't assume, but if the board moves forward with authorization to advertise the budget, that would be made available for the public review at the Township Building and online tomorrow, November 7th, and will also get advertised, meeting the 20-day requirement, consecutive day requirement, for final adoption at the December 3rd meeting. Okay, looking at the sewer fund draft. I don't know how, You guys want me to go through the full numbers or totals? What's that? Not with this view. I'll read the numbers. All right, so the draft, as far as sewer fund revenue, interest income, 21,983. Sewer connection tap-in fees, 172,789. Sewer certification, 1,225. Sewer connection application fees, 9,750. Sewer use charge, 941,371 at the current rate, for a total proposed revenue budget of $1.147 million. As far as expenses, labor is 96,894. The operation and maintenance is 521,687, and transfer to capital reserve would be 82,145. Debt service is 518,950, for a total proposed budget of $1.306 million, $6,071 million. Cash balance, projected cash balance, beginning of 2025 would be 639,973. Cash balance at the year to end date would be 480,931. This is based on the current $200 per quarter or $800 per year rate. At this current rate, the sewer fund budget would be bankrupt by the end of 2029 with the current projected expenses moving out into the future. I did do the projections increase, or the projection update as of the end of October. And it did increase the net income to 20,486 from a negative 14,229 for the 2024 projection. Any questions so far?
The only question I have is the item we talked about earlier. Will that make any difference? I mean, I know it'll make a difference in the budget, but I know we have wiggle room. I think it was at 25% per item in the budget can be different and it's still fine. So where would, should we just put like maybe $40,000 in there?
Yeah, I did.
Somewhere for something?
So I
For
did
that
add
Meng
the.
Road study?
I'm sorry, I did add the Meng's road study, spreading it out over 2 years. So it would increase the transfer to the sewer capital fund to 118,895 for that, instead of the 82,145. So it would increase it by that 35,
Okay,
or roughly 37.5 number.
okay.
Yes. Yep, the current deficit, based with that addition, would be negative, a deficit of 195,792. Any other questions? So obviously, that's up to the board.
Can we just finish the sewer section and then you can ask? Thanks.
But all these numbers are at the current sewer rent charge?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, fine.
And obviously with that deficit is, as we've just discussed, is different from the 159,042 for 2025. So this next slide, if the board was looked to as far as sewer increase options, I broke it down starting at $210 per quarter or $840 per year, and went up by 5 up to $235 per quarter, $940 per year. As far as at $210 per quarter, It would give an additional revenue to the sewer fund of $47,069. As far as the impact to the resident, it'd be $10 additional per quarterly bill, or 10 cents per day, or $3.33 per month. Obviously, this deficit now is going to be roughly 146,000 now.
I thought you said the deficit would now be up to 195.
Well, so that's with this, with the increase. So the
Oh, gotcha.
deficit
Okay.
would change.
Gotcha.
With that increase. So at $250 per quarter or $860 per year, that would bring an additional $70,603 additional revenue to the sewer fund. As far as the impact to the user, $15 additional per quarterly bill, or 16 cents per day, $5 per month. And that would change the deficit, would be roughly 125,000. If the rate was to go to $220 per quarter or $880 per year, being an additional revenue of $94,137, that'd be at $20 an additional per quarterly bill to the user, 22 cents per day, $6.67 per month, and that deficit would be roughly around 100,000. At $225 per quarter or $900 per year, that would bring additional revenue of $117,672 to the sewer fund, $25 additional per quarterly bill, 27 cents per day, or $8.33 per month, and that deficit would be roughly $76,000. At $230 per quarter or $920 per year, bring additional revenue of $141,206. That'd be $30 additional per quarterly bill to the user, 33 cents per day, or $10 per month, and that deficit would be roughly $53,000. To raise it to $235 per quarter or $940 per year, that would bring additional revenue of $164,740, which would be $35 additional per quarterly bill to the user, 38 cents per day, $11.67 per month, and that would have created a surplus that's still now a deficit of roughly 30,000. Any questions on this slide?
Not on the slide itself, but it's my understanding that we can go ahead and authorize advertising, and we don't have to make the decision about the rate increase today. Is that correct? Yeah, Colby's nodding his head, yes. I don't think we have to make that decision until we approve the budget. We can discuss it, but I don't think we have to.
If it's not gonna be part of the budget, no. So you don't have to make it part of it. I think what Jason would like is to know how it is so he can have it exactly in the budget.
Okay, gotcha.
So this next slide will make it a little clearer as far as it's basically breaking down the information I just provided as far as how it impacts the budget in a more clear manner. Obviously, we've got to add roughly 35,000 as far as, or roughly 36,000 per, as far as that deficit in the over under. So that would be the impact to the sewer fund for next year with those quarterly rate increases, starting at what it's currently at.
I recall from the last time we raised sewer rates, we made the decision, and then in the next sewer bill, we notified customers that there was going to be a raise, and then in the next quarter, they got the raise. So would that also be the plan this time?
I wasn't here for that, but if that's what the board so choose, I mean, I'll follow whatever plan the board.
Well, the time before that, which was before my time, when the sewer rates were raised, people opened up their sewer bills, surprise, and they had the raise with no notice. So I think that's why we discussed notifying people first.
Give them notice way before that, way before that.
Okay.
I think the first last time around, the first time they got an increased bill was June, right?
Yeah.
And we,
There's only 4 or 5 people in here that pay sewer in this whole room. Amazing.
I mean, I think 1 quarter is sufficient, but we have to give them notice period, whether it's 1 quarter or 2 quarters. So when do the bills go out? January, next one?
They would go out, the January bills would be for the fourth quarter.
Okay.
So the actual, if the board moved forward on a rate change for 2025, that bill wouldn't go to that wouldn't go out till April.
I think 3 months' notice is okay. We just have to notify people it's coming. I think we have to make some kind of increase. I mean, our budget is just not gonna work out. Things are expensive. Discussion from the board on where we want to come out on this?
If you're gonna up the rates, I think you ought to send something out now.
I think that's what we did last time. We sent it out like at the end of the year, whenever it was voted on, and then they didn't get the first increase, I think, till like June. That's what happened, so it was like 6 months.
I thought it was April. No, I think you're thinking of the time before that, when the rates were doubled. That was the big surprise.
So we need to get it done by a certain time so that the notice of increase can get in the January bill, right? That's how we've been getting it out there, so.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, if the board moves forward on our sewer rate and you guys adopt the budget, we could send out a mailer by itself if you wanted, as soon as that be adopted. So that would be in December if you didn't want to wait for that billing, you know, that would give roughly a month, an additional month notice to the users.
Well, that's 1,140 letters. That's-
I'm just,
I believe last time it was part of
Their bill.
the bill,
Yeah.
saying the next time it will be raised.
Yes.
So
That's what
nice
I
in red,
remember.
they know it's coming. So I mean, you laid out the numbers, thinking of the past years of budgeting, we always want to figure in 7% or so for inflation for our own budgeting. Just looking at last year, chemicals were up 20%, hauling was up 14%, so yeah, we can't continue to just not have any sort of increase, and then we have everything else that goes along with running the sewer plant, and then the surprises that come when it doesn't run the way it's supposed to. I think small incremental, if we did the 7%, or closest to it would be 7.5, which would be the $15 a quarter raise to $860. I think I would lean towards that. I understand it doesn't cover the entire deficit, but we also have not had the most consistent years leading up to this with hurricanes and everything else going on and different things, and we're extension projects. So things are starting to, I think, normalize a little bit, that we can get a little bit extra funds in there and then see how we're doing. We also don't budget out for these future years where we said we no longer have money. There's no growth in the majority of the years following. So assuming nothing ever grows, these are all true statements. Assuming there's going to be some sort of growth and some additional tap-in fees, it'll be a little better than nothing.
So you're,
I'm not disagreeing with you, but if your bills go out quarterly, that's 3 months. Okay, so your first 3 months is gonna be, if it starts in January, you've got January, February, March, correct? That's why I'm saying, get it out early.
Yeah, we would send it out in the January bill, and then the first increase would be in the next bill. So they'd have a 3 months,
Later.
right, so they'd have 3 months' notice. I mean, I'm looking at the $20 a quarter raise, and that would give us almost half the deficit. That would get us a little closer, with only another $5 a quarter. That seems like a nice intermediate number.
at at $15 per quarter based on our current projections, and now with having the study, that pushes the bankrupting of the fund back out to 2031. So it does give a couple of years, it does give a couple of extra years.
Any other discussion?
I'm okay with the 220 number that you suggested.
Would that give us another year, maybe, at 220?
Yes, it pushes it out to 2032, and that's that 220 across the board. That's not with any other incremental increases until that time.
Okay.
Yeah,
You okay with 220?
yeah.
Terry, you okay with 220? That'll push us out another year before we're out of money.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine with me.
Do we need to make a motion on that? What do we need to do?
Lock it in.
I just give me direction. The motion will happen with the, when you guys adopt,
month?
when you adopt the budget.
Oh, okay, so, you okay with that, Terry? We go up to, I'm sorry, the other Terry. Very sorry.
Very,
You okay with the 220?
I like 215 better, but okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, I guess it helps. I mean,
It gets us halfway to our deficit, so.
yeah.
So just for the public's edification too, because so this is a change with the tap-in fee for each tap-in fee moving forward, 50% would go to the sewer CIP. And also the set aside and/or, what was the term? Not set aside, we've bumped, I know set aside is not, trying to think of the term, the other term. I was told to use a different term for set aside.
oh, I thought we were,
Okay, the set aside, we've bumped that down to 10,000 a year for the capital. This year's budget had 100,000 in it, but with the change in the tap-in fee, bumping it down to 10,000 was more manageable, and that way the sewer fund, the capital fund isn't growing exponentially while the sewer fund is suffering, as far as trying to pay for things. So I just want to let, that was some of the major changes from what was presented previously.
Okay, is there anything else on the sewer fund? Everyone, okay?
See.
Terry, do you have any, hang on a sec. Terry, do you have anything else on the sewer fund? All right, Diane, you were first. Okay, great.
And then Brian had his hand raised.
Okay, Brian, I'll get to you right after Bob.
Probably take Brian.
Oh,
He might ask the same question.
okay. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Brian, 11 Ziegler Road. I'm a little confused by, Jason, you made under over budget numbers. They don't match what your spreadsheet said. They were about, I don't know, $25,000 difference. How can you explain that? I don't understand how you got the 235 rate at a positive number of 5698, and you mentioned it being a deficit of something close to $20,000. What is that? Is that spreadsheet incorrect, or was there something that you corrected and didn't update the spreadsheet for?
At this meeting, we added the Act 5, the Meng Road study, so that changed all those numbers.
Okay, that should have been then updated to spreadsheet to reflect.
I can't do it simultaneously, Brian. This is a presentation. It's not a spreadsheet.
Okay,
That's why I was given the number on top of what was being presented.
okay. I didn't correlate that. As to the EDUs, that 1212, is that what is current in the township, or is that the ones projected for some of the current building projects?
That would be at the end of 2025.
So
What we're
those are the ones projected for the building projects going on in the township.
Yes, yep.
Thank you.
Did that help you at all? No? Okay.
Bob Burns, Zieglerville Road. Jason, I couldn't really see the first slide you had up there, but I think it had like 170-some thousand in for connections for next year.
Yes.
So are they coming, is that coming new, or is that coming from the money that you already got from Farmview?
Farmview's already in the bank.
Right, so this is something new.
This is projecting with how we expect Melbourne to go house by house. So obviously, they've not started construction on houses. So we broke down, understanding they're kind of at a 2 to 3 year build out rate. We broke down 40% of the houses for each subdivision where they're active, where they get connected in 2025, 45% in 2026, and then the remainder in 2027 if they follow their building schedule. So that.
Right, and then long before you were here, most of the people on the board were here. Ben and his lawyer were here, and I had mentioned about them paying the EDUs all at once up front. Ben and his lawyer didn't seem to have a problem with it. I don't know whatever happened with it. Then all of a sudden, you guys had some kind of thing where you figured out this developers agreement, which you agreed to tonight. So I think, Chuck, you said you don't know when those EDU payments will be coming in, or whether we'll be getting, are we going to get 10 at a time, or it's going to be one at a time?
I think it's as the permits are
Right.
issued.
That's
then
our
they'll pay the
As they
admin
pull the
fee.
permits for it.
Okay. So at the last meeting, and you just briefly talked about it now, the tapping fee, you were talking
Yes.
about using 50%.
Yes.
So I know I've, killed you guys with this time and time again. It's going to be my last time to try to explain it to you. We have component A, component B, and component C, which is,
Only 2 components.
there's 3 components. Look at the email.
I've looked at the resolution that it.
Okay,
that
so
they
there's 3
created the EDU.
components, and the way the components are set up, we're only allowed to use certain amount of that money for certain things. So we have the money for the other connections. We have the money that just came in from Fulmer Road's connections. I'm assuming we still have that, right? That didn't get used to pay other bills.
No.
So if you have that money and you're going to use a portion of it, I don't think 50% was right. I don't think your original number at 30% was. I might be wrong. Maybe things have changed. I'll go back and look at the email that Mark sent me to go over that again. But I believe we're guided by second-class township code under the sewer portion of it that says what we're supposed to do. So I don't want the township to get in trouble for doing the wrong thing. But whatever we can do legally, we should do with that money. And if that money can help keep these sewer rates lower instead of you having to raise them. I know you did a new self-liquidating debt report from the other report. I don't know how you do that, but just something to think about so we don't get in trouble.
Keep in mind, the sewer capital fund is not a dedicated sewer capital in the true sense. It's a subset of the sewer fund itself. So it's really one big bucket. The board's just choosing to take a percentage and put it into the sewer capital for future capital needs.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on the sewer fund, are we ready to move on to the next portion of the budget?
Do you need a resolution for advertising each time, or once we're done with it? If that's what we do tonight.
I don't have a resolution to author.
No, I mean, what Chuck asked about is, do we need one resolution, for the budget in its entirety, not each section?
One motion, you can do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I should have said motion. I meant-
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, I keep freaking, I don't have that resolution. All right. So as far as the sewer fund, capital improvement plan, the interest income is projected 21,672. Our proposed transfer from sewer fund would be 82,145. That's the 50% of the tap-in fees. Transfer from sewer fund, I'm sorry, that's for the 10,000 plus the projects proposed for the sewer fund. The transfer for sewer fund for the tap-in fees would be 86,395, for a total revenue of 190,211. Expenses for the project / equipment, it would be 88,662, which of course is now changed with the main road study. So those capital projects, which would still need to be blessed by the board before moving forward on any of this, security system cameras and key entry, a heater for the Headworks building, awning for the flood barriers that were installed this year, UV service and parts, the Zieglerville Road sewer extension planning, and then we would be adding part of the Meng Road study as far as that going. I've already put that in the capital improvement plan.
So we would need to add 35,000 to that 88,000 number?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, it ends up being,
Yeah, 37.5.
yeah.
Is that what you did?
Because unfortunately, when it goes out into the future, it takes inflation to it, kind of.
Yeah, I know, muddies the water.
So that, with adding the Meng Road study, that sewer capital revenue would be 226,961, because it would be getting more money from the sewer capital fund, and the sewer capital expense would be 125,412. That's what the board would actually be blessing as far as advertisement.
Any discussion on this, or is the board okay with this?
I mean, it is what it is,
Okay,
right?
you're fine? Okay,
I can't actually see taking any of that off.
yeah, okay. Terry? Yep, okay, great.
Ooh,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, computer laptop. I left that out. Sorry.
You have a question about this? Go ahead.
I think so. Couple meetings back, we talked about having Bob Preston work on the design for Zieglerville Road.
That's in there.
Okay,
That's what
so
that
the
is.
reason why I'm asking it again now is because when we had that discussion before, I believe that night, either there was a little confusion, or maybe I'm confusing myself now since there's so much stuff that's happening in between there. But I thought the money from the ARPA was going to pay for Bob to do the study. And then when Jason gave the budget in the last 2 weeks ago, he mentioned that he wasn't doing the I&I, which we had talked about earlier this year, that Bob and Jason said we had $33,000 in for. And so now Bob's not doing anything until next year?
Correct.
That's correct, which is in 8 weeks.
And the road sewer was not presented coming from ARPA. That was going to be a sewer fund expense. That was not to come out of ARPA. That was going to be a sewer fund expense for the planning.
The study that Bob was doing
Correct.
was coming out of this, was always meant to come out of the sewer fund and not ARPA, is what, I don't recall ever discussing it coming out of ARPA.
So are we ready to move on from the sewer fund? Any pending questions? Nope, okay.
All right, liquid fuels, a little easier here. 2025 projection, or proposed budget, interest income of $10,000, liquid fuels tax of $157,228, and the state road turnback of $9,080 for a total of $176,308. Current proposed expenses would be the debt service for truck purchase. I believe this is going to be payment number 4 in 2025. Snow removal of $25,000 and an oil and chip road maintenance project of $200,000 for a total expense of $245,655. With the current budget projections, the liquid fuels fund will have a deficit of $69,347 in 2025. Any questions on this?
When you say deficit, you mean that we will spend more than we take in,
Yes.
but we will still have a positive balance at the end of 2025.
Based on the projected cash balance for the end of this year, I'm projecting a cash balance at the end of next year of $414,114.
Okay.
Any questions or discussion on the liquid fuels fund?
All right.
Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
So on the liquid fuels fund, does that 150,000 that you had in for Zieglerville Road, is that gonna kind of be left like earmarked in there so that you carry it on later on? Or whenever Zieglerville Road comes up in the future, we're gonna have to start over with the dollars?
So the Zieglerville, but it's not in the budget currently.
But it was in the budget until it got
yeah.
squashed this year. So here's what I'm trying to find out, since we're trying to have a capital budget, and we already had 150 in the budget designated for that. So now we're not gonna have that designated for that, even though there will be a balance of $400 and some dollars, like you said.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe the board can figure out to put that in the capital budget.
All right, I think we're done with liquid fuels.
Open space.
Open space, for the draft budget, interest income of $7,540, earned income tax of $106,783, for a total of $114,326 of revenue. As far as expenses, the conservation purchases, a total of $130,000. Now, this still would include the $30,000 for the ag preservation that I have gotten confirmed that would happen in this spring. We still haven't had the other on the Barber property, but that would be in there also. EIT commission of $1,143, professional services of $9,143, and meeting/advertisement of $3,000, because the open space committee has been discussing doing some type of mailer or something in the near future, for a total expense of $142,143. Projected cash balance at the beginning of 2025 is $303,825, and the end of year would be $276,008, having a deficit of $27,817 for 2025. And also keep in mind, this is not a fund we are required to budget.
Yeah, and again, when you mean deficit, you mean that's how much money would be spent. It's not really a deficit in the fund,
Well, I mean, we're spending more than we take in.
yes,
but there's still money left.
yes.
Okay, super. Any questions on this?
And just for an FYI, I did see you have, I think, $100,000 in a 6-month CD, so we are trying to make interest
Correct.
on that balance.
Which still goes towards the cash balance and so, reserve in regards to the general fund. Any questions?
No. So can we move on to the next one?
All right, our good old ARPA. So for 2025, no interest income. So far, 2 projects for next year, which would be the Phase 1 Coldwell Park grant, if we do get that. which would be a commitment of $34,069. And the Spring Mount Sidewalk project, which is actually scheduled for March and April construction of $81,864 for a total of $115,933 in expenses. Projected cash balance at the end of 2024, $115,933, and zero balance at the end of 2025.
Although just, I think, to be accurate, I think we have don't we have theoretically have to the end of 2026 to actually spend all the money?
We do.
Just theoretically.
Theoretically.
It has to all be allocated by the end of 2024.
It has to be allocated, so the sidewalk project itself, that has to be done by June of 2025, because we have Monco, because we were receiving Monco 2040 grant money on that. The Coble Park grant would be able to be carried over if, I believe, I'm not sure how long we have if we receive that, 2 to 3. So that could potentially carry over into 2026, but I'm not planning on it. But that's earmarked. That's a blessed project by the board. And if we do receive the grant, that is our commitment that we would have to pay towards that grant. So it would be locked in. So we'd be okay.
Well, I just want to say we had $500,000, and that was great to have that extra money because we spent it on some good projects. But when it's gone, it's gone.
Any questions?
So the doors and all that show up somewhere else?
Yes, actually, it's in your nice packet.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll show up on the COVID, you'll have a COVID relief ARPA sheet that shows the breakdown of those additional projects that have already been blessed.
Okay. Yep.
Any other questions? All right, and as just stating again, these funds must be either spent by the end of 2024 or dedicated to an approved project or quote. All right, so for the general fund. So as far as general fund revenue, real estate tax, which includes our dedicated tax for fire and ambulance of a $903,849. Real estate transfer, $187,738. Earned income tax projected $1.067,833. Cable franchise, $69,851. Fines, forfeits, and interest, $62,350. Intergovernmental, $88,163. Permits and charges for service, $108,316. And then culture, recreation, and the fire hydrant assessment tax, $7,039, for a total projected budget or proposed budget of $2.495139 million. Expenses, you have labor O&M for the admin of $400,326. Labor and O&M or operation and maintenance for police, $831,142. The labor and O&M for public works, $637,386. The operation and maintenance for the building and zoning and planning of $145,508. Emergency services, which would include fire, ambulance, emergency management of $244,996. Professional services of $214,011. This would include your auditor, engineer, solicitor, tax and tax collection. Culture, recreation, miscellaneous of $39,664. Insurance, casualty, and surety of $56,884. This is something we have broke out differently. This used to be buried, actually, for some reason, under the Board of Supervisors, 400. So we broke that out by itself. And then the transfer to the general fund CIP of $153,429 for a proposed budget of $2.723,346. Projected cash balance at the end of 2024 of $2,131,390, excuse me, $2,131,390, and an ending cash balance of $1,903,182. With the current budget projections, general fund will have a deficit of $228,208 in 2025, and expenses are adjusted with the 5% inflation rate. So some of the major changes as far as the general fund, the set-aside funds, which we had talked about last year and were in this budget of $200,000, that has been bumped down to $150,000. And this does include hiring of a public works employee, kind of mid-June timeframe. All other costs, as I discussed at the previous meeting, are operation, maintenance, or kind of cost of doing business. We've moved anything out there was a permit software that was originally in the general fund that I've moved into the CIP. And I do believe this deficit is a little better number than the last number the board saw.
Jason, so can you also say when our general fund will be bankrupt?
Oh, sorry.
What year that would be?
So as far as the general fund, this is with a current mill rate and a 0.1, I'm sorry, I did leave out a 0.14 increase, real estate tax increase for the fire company. The fund would be bankrupt by the end of 2028. I did do the updated projections, and it only decreased the net income by $430 for this year to a negative $171,542.
But we're still going to be completely broke by 2028 with these trends.
Yes.
No.
Well, that's with projects that are not.
We're not going to, no, okay. So take the revenue, take the expenses. At 2028, there's a large 7-digit number put in there.
Yes.
For something that has nothing to do with us right now. Take that out of it. It continues to go. This township is not going to go bankrupt for a building. It's just not going to. So yes, it's been running at a deficit. We do have general funds. It's there. It's been there because of taxes and everything else. So I'd like to kind of go through what was taken out since the last time we met.
Okay.
And try to get an idea of what did you push to the next couple years maybe to help us get to a little bit better tonight. So I just don't like the in 3 years we're going to be this, in 4 years we're going to be that. In 10 years, 12 years, if we don't do anything, completely agree. Completely agree. But let's not play this in 5 years, there's doom. We did have an information session, so I wanted to thank Jason. Also Supervisor Sachs his knowledge on equipment came in very handy. We talked the last meeting, another public works person starting halfway through the year. One of the things that I think I would encourage our manager and our public works crew to look at the projects that happen, to look at the equipment we have, the equipment we need, understand how often we use that equipment. We removed the mini excavator from this year to next year.
Yes.
But even through that discussion, what I heard was it's a very useful tool and it's a lot more agile than what we have. But if we get that, we also need a trailer. We probably don't have room to store it currently. So to start to think about what are other options? We have an equipment bid. It does not currently include a mini excavator. So next year, let's think about it. Play with it a little bit. See if we can use these projects that we need to use this equipment for, do it back-to-back days, weeks, whatever it ends up being, to test it for a couple years. If we realize that it's actually not worth our while to rent or to pay someone else to do it, then we build a case for buying this equipment. We could do this with a lot of the things in the budget, whether it's, again, not an expert here, but whether it's snow removal, mowing, whatever it ends up being, let's think about the equipment that we have, that we use all the time when we need it, the things that we have because we need it once in a while, understand what are other options, and take a look at our head count and say, okay, once we hire, we have an employee, there's insurance, there's benefits, there's health, there's everything goes along with it. We have equipment, there's maintenance, there's a lot of things that we have to pay for, including insurance and a building to store it. So I really challenge the manager and all of our departments to look at the things that we do day in and day out, what we need to do day in and day out, and what we don't do all the time, still need to do, and find alternative ways to do that.
I'm on board with that approach.
I am as well.
I've been on board with it.
So this is all accurate based on that discussion,
So this,
what you have
this,
up on the slide?
yes, so this is moving the mini excavator, the trailer, also a dump truck out another year, and out of 2025. And then also, as far as that equipment bid, I did raise the under 438, 200, and 210 as far as contractor, the roads and bridges contractors and supplies and materials. I've raised those up to 30,000 each to try to accommodate some of that additional equipment bid that we've not tried out before.
So what does that give us for a deficit for 2025 with those modifications?
So what you see now is the deficit that's with those changes. So that deficit of 228, 208 is with those changes.
$228,000.
Yes.
Okay. So Terry, you are correct. We can keep going for a few more years with $228,000 deficits, but in a couple of years, it's going to catch up with us real fast. So what do we need to do?
So
What do we need to do now? Any more discussion from the board on the general fund?
I've got tax slides, but if that's not interest, we don't need to spend time on them.
This number still includes hiring a
Yes.
public works
Yep.
person.
Half a year.
Yep.
I understand.
Yeah, I put that back in for this.
And if we don't hire them, then it's not, any item in our budget, just because it's in there doesn't mean
Correct.
that we do it. So just want to make sure that's clear, especially for not the employing people, but the capital improvement. Just because it's in there doesn't mean on January 1st we put an order in to buy something.
Correct.
We still have to go through the process. And again, what I said, I encourage to do a deeper dive, during the winter months maybe, and start to plan the projects out, and we might find that we may not need that other person if we're able to use our equipment bid and operators for other projects, but maybe we will.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to budget, meeting time next year to get the updates on how that's going, so we don't just talk about it now and then revisit it and not think about it until next year this time or June or something, so
I know there's been discussion talking about the CIP, making that kind of a semi-red or like quarterly kind of, where we're at. I mean, I obviously put it in my, in the monthly treasurer's report, trying to point out different things so that it's at least getting in front of people. But that's obviously with what's been discussed this year. I'll have to let the board know where kind of where we land and what we come up with. So I'm already kind of working through how we're going to navigate through that.
Yeah, I think it's also important to recognize that we do not have 4 full-time people on the road crew, that some of that time is spent maintaining the sewer plant. Was that maybe one full-time person, would you say?
One full-time person for daily operation, any maintenance required.
Yeah, and that includes some weekend work.
Yeah, we have to do your operation only.
Yeah, okay, thank you for clarifying that. All right, can we just finish our, well, we'll see if we're done or not. Are we done? Are we done with our general fund discussion?
I am.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Diane. Please, because the people on Zoom can't hear you and then they complain, so.
And when you're on Zoom, you would want to hear yourself.
Okay, Chuck, you've probably talked about this before, but in 2 sentences, can a member of the board explain why we put $153,000 in CIP, creating a deficit? It would be like if I had grocery money and I wanted to buy groceries this year, but I'm going to put my grocery money away for next year, which gives me a deficit. Okay, so I've got it wrong. So please, somebody from the board, 2 sentences, please explain why we're putting money into the CIP.
So I think the simplest way to explain it is you have a car, you have a house, you put some money aside in your savings account because you know you're going to need it for maintenance, replace your roof, whatever. So that is what that was what the CIP is that is money we know we will need for bigger expenses, and we don't want it busting our budget. So what we decided to do, I think a year or 2 ago, is instead of figuring out where the money's going to come from, put aside some money every year so when those big expenses come up, we have the money set aside and it doesn't mess up our budget. So it's really kind of, well, like I said, it's putting money into your savings account to fix your roof, right? You just put it aside every year, or a Christmas, fund, or it's putting the money aside to have it for when you need it for something big. It's your emergency fund.
Think of it, you've mentioned stowing away for sewer connection. I know you brought that up before. That's what the CIP is for.
Let me put it differently. In the early part of 2000s and even beyond that, this township charged a very small amount for sewer rent and didn't put the money away for a new plant. And now we're paying $500,000 a year to service debt for a plant because we didn't put the money away, right? That's what's going on now. And that's a significant fraction of our sewer budget that we just looked at.
Is the board ready to approve advertising the budget, or are there any other questions or discussion on any portions of the budget?
Fire millage. Already in there? Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to bring it up separately or.
So that does include, so let me be sure, that this budget does include an increase from 0.36 mils to 0.5 mils, which was requested by the fire company for this year. So yeah, that's built in, Terry.
Okay.
It gives them roughly $36,000 of revenue. Additional, excuse me. You have a hand raised, Marlon.
On Zoom?
Yes,
Who is it?
Brian.
Brian, go ahead.
Yep, Brian Hill, 11 Zieglerville Road. So I may be shocked here, but looking at what was on, I guess, one of the first pages, something about the Zieglerville Road sewer expansion planning. Did I hear that right? And is that something that's going to go on in 2025? I understand it's planning, but is that, was I hearing something, or was that actually on that paper?
That is correct, and that would be to produce a plan.
Okay, that's what I'm not saying it's the go, I'm just, so so is that going to be part of the budget, or is that, did I hear we were going to push it off to 26?
No, that will be part of the 2025 budget.
I think I'm hearing a hallelujah song here. Holy smokes. Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes, Brian, that was something I suggested over the summer, and the board decided to move forward with it, so you can thank me too.
Well, Chuck, thank you very much.
I made it happen for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I guess after hearing me for 20 years, I guess, the song finally broke it, right?
Nobody else made it happen for you, but I got it for you, all right?
I will send you a thank you card.
Thanks.
If there's no, so last but not least would be the general fund capital improvement plan. As far as revenue, $7,003 for interest income, transfer from ARPA for grant projects of $508,990, sale of equipment $9,221, and transfer from the general fund of $153,429 for a proposed revenue budget of $678,643. As far as expenses, admin projects purchases of $11,576, building projects / purchases of $38,728, police projects / purchases of $9,270, public works projects and purchases of $306,622. This is where the sidewalk project is, and park and recreation projects of $233,264. This is where the Coble Park phase and the Cuddy Park stormwater's in there. So these are the public works purchases / projects: laptop, a mower, a traffic light video detection system, and the Spring Mountain sidewalk project. The PD speed board, which we've been utilizing around the township. Bulletproof vest, which I had mentioned at the previous meeting, those need to be replaced every 5 years. And a desktop. For admin, this was permit property management software that I've sort of discussed with the board that we had built into the general fund that I've moved to the CIP now. And then as far as Park and Rec, the Coble Park Phase 1, and then the Cuddy Park stormwater that we just submitted that PICO grant for to hopefully pay for half of that. Then for the building would be the door lock system and a camera system, which I have yet to present to the board, but will hopeful in the new year. Projected ending balance of at the end of 2024 would be $269,547. And then at the end of 2025, $348,730. Any questions?
No questions.
All right, that's.
Oh, here we go. Any pending questions from the public? Looks like a no. Okay. So is the board ready to authorize advertising of the budget? You want to do the honors? So this would be to vote to authorize advertisement of the 2025 budget. Is that sufficient for a motion?
Yes.
So any adjustments we talked about for the fire company, that's a separate thing.
The fire company was already built into with the numbers that the board saw.
So we don't need to vote on that separately.
But I think before the end of the year, we do, because I think the state wants to know if we're raising taxes.
Well, along with,
Right, so we'll have to do that in
yeah,
December.
along with the budget resolution, there'll be a tax resolution based
Yes.
on
Not
the
today.
adopted budget. Not today.
All right, would someone like to make a motion to authorize advertising of the budget? And that means, I believe, tomorrow it will be available to the public. Please do not come in
Yes.
at 9 o'clock. It will not be ready by 9 o'clock. Give the office a little bit of time. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Chuck Yiser will second.
Supervisor Holter made the motion. Supervisor Yiser made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. That brings us to the end of our business portion. We are now on public comment. Go ahead, Diane.
I'll send this to you, Jason, and maybe Carol. Just happened to be perusing grants that might be coming available, and might, infrastructure is included. So it's called the Local Share Act statewide. I think it comes from the lottery, yeah. And sounds like it's every year, and you can apply from September 1st to November 30th of any year. So maybe when we get the design of that sewer system, if this is still going, if it applies to that kind of thing. So that's, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Just want to thank Mr. Byrd for making things clear tonight.
Okay, so that was Bob Burns, Ziegler River Road. He thanked Supervisor Byrd for making things in the budget clearer. Anyone else? Do we have any supervisor comment? I just want to make a comment. It's great to see so many people here in the meeting. This is truly democracy at work. So thank you, everyone who took time out of your day to come here and attend, and all the folks on Zoom. Nothing? Right? Meeting's adjourned.